What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Unbelievable Nerds podcast. And today, you've got myself, Grimmy, and my glamorous assistant, Bragster, with me. How are you doing today, Bragster?
I'm good. I'm all good. I'm having a great time. You can probably tell by the light in the background that not very often this happens, but recording during the day,
Yes.
which is quite nice.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm having a great time. How are you, Grimmy?
Yeah, I'm good. It's very bizarre recording this before 7 o'clock on any weekday. It feels very strange. We might have done like one at like a normal time and day before, so to do it again is a bit weird. But yeah, overall, pretty good. Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into the subject of today. But yeah, feeling good. I'm glad you're enjoying yourself on your little bit of break that you're having. So yeah.
Oh, it's going to end any moment. So
Yeah.
it literally ends at the end of this week. So not looking
We'll
forward
see.
to that.
We'll see how it goes after that. Yeah. So the main topic of today and the main thing we're going to be talking about is sort of the DCU or the movie and television landscape that the DC is going into, which is obviously being spearheaded by James Gunn. For those of you who didn't know, if you've been living under a rock, he's
Not
left
the rock, a rock.
Not a rock. I mean, if you've been sleeping under the rock, I mean,
who
fair enough.
Apparently was going to revive DC, and then James Gunn came available, and they went, "Bye, Rock."
yeah. So yeah, basically James Gunn's finished with Marvel. He's finished with Guardians of the Galaxy now, with the third one coming out in the next couple of weeks. And basically, a few months ago, he announced a whole slate of new DC movies and TV and changes that were coming, and basically resetting and restarting and rebooting the entire universe as we know it. Yeah, very strange. But I think we're going to go through it and obviously give our thoughts as to what we feel about it and on certain projects and like what we're looking forward to and that sort of thing. And then probably towards the end, answer the whole question of, do we think this can actually work and actually revive DC? Or do we think it's just going to be a case of same old, basically? I think I already know Brax's answer, but we'll find out in a bit. But we'll start from the very top because it's very apropos that we're talking about DC today, because James Gunn actually tweeted out the other day celebrating an anniversary of Superman's that pre-production has started on Superman Legacy, which is going to be the first film in the new DC universe. That's out in 2025. Well, technically, yeah. That's going to be like the big flagship moment. But
yeah, because like Blue Beetle's coming out later this year. That's apparently James Gunn-ish, but kind of not. And like, it's confusing. That I think we'll cover many times during this. It's confusing.
Yes, it's very confusing. But obviously you've got Superman Legacy coming out in 2025. Obviously the big main news out of that so far is that Henry Cavill isn't coming back. Yeah, which I think is crazy to me because of what happened beforehand, where he cameoed in Black Adam. There was this whole thing of, I'm back, I'm coming back, we're gonna do this properly now. I'm in the next Superman film. And then literally I don't even think it was like a few weeks later, and then James Gunn's like, sorry, Henry, not happening on my watch. Basically, we're starting afresh.
Especially when he just left The Witcher as well for it.
Well, like, he specifically left it, hadn't he? Like he said in that statement, he said, I'm leaving The Witcher to go be Superman. And then DC go, about that.
Yeah.
Oh, not happening. So, yeah, like, what do you, I mean, are you looking forward to seeing a James Gunn directed and written Superman film?
So I'm gonna have to try and be careful here because it's about Superman, and I know how Superman fans are very loyal. And if I say anything wrong, I will be rinsed on Twitter for the rest of my life. I actually think, controversially, this is a smart move. I think that not going with Henry Cavill is smart, right? No, it's not because.
It's not because. I didn't do anything.
I didn't do anything. It's fine. Right. I'm alive.
Yeah, you're back.
I'm back. Don't know what happened. Somehow got kicked, but I'm back. Here we go. And it apparently wasn't Grimmy. It's not because of the fact that, oh, I don't like Henry Cavill. I think Henry Cavill was a brilliant Superman, is still a brilliant Superman. For me, the reason as to why it's a good idea is because of the reboot. For me, if James Gunn is smart, what he has to do categorically, if he's going to do this right, when he says he's rebooting it and not going with Henry Cavill, is recasting everybody. And to my disheartening, that means I'm saying we don't get to see Harley Quinn again with Margot Robbie, because she's brilliant at that role. But if you're doing a reboot and you're resetting the entire universe and you're making it your own, make it your own. And that means literally getting rid of everybody and starting from scratch. And I think that's the smart move. Am I looking forward to Superman? Again, controversially, I'm not the biggest fan of Superman, right? I'm not, like, for whatever reason, I could never connect with Superman, no, I wouldn't say never got Superman, because I do. And I enjoyed Man of Steel and stuff like that, but I just, not one of my favorite heroes. There's loads of heroes out there that I absolutely love and adore and will rush to the cinema to watch a movie of. Superman's one of the ones, for me personally, they're going to have to sell it to me quite a bit. Like, it says a lot when one of my favorite depictions of Superman is Brightburn, which is a horror film that isn't Superman, but most definitely is. Because basically they realized we can do the Superman story, make it a horror film, and not call it Superman, and we can get away with this. And they did, and it was highly successful and genuinely a very good film. If you haven't seen it, watch it. It's a horror film, and that's obviously some people might not like it, but it's definitely worth a shot because it really is an interesting take on the Superman story. And I think for me, that's one of the best depictions because it was new, it was exciting and stuff like that. And I think they need to do something with Superman that makes me go, I get it. I really get this. I don't know what that is per se, but I really I think what they need to do is whoever they pick needs to be perfect for the role, because they will be compared to Henry Cavill because of all the fans. It's one of those. I'm looking forward to it purely because it's James Gunn, and we know how good James Gunn is, right? That is a categorically factual statement. He's brilliant. How he does Superman is going to be interesting because, I love his stuff with the Guardians, but you can't do every film in a universe like you do Guardians. You can't have every single one being happy and fun and having this underlying tone of this message behind it, depending on what each film is. You can't do that for every single one. It doesn't work. So it's going to be interesting to see what he does, what sort of characters he takes on more hands-on than others. Because obviously you compare it to Marvel with Kevin Feige. Obviously, Kevin doesn't do, I call him by his first name. Kevin doesn't do every single film. There are certain franchises and characters that he doesn't really touch. Guardians of the Galaxy being one of them. It'd be interesting to see which ones James Gunn decides not to take on. Obviously, by the sounds of things, he's taking on Superman fully. So it's going to be interesting to see what he sort of does. Do you think it's the right move to get rid of Henry Cavill, or?
I don't see why they couldn't have done another Henry Cavill movie if they made the right decision on the Robert Pattinson Batman movies, which again we'll touch on in a bit. But I think if you're doing all these separate projects which aren't part of the part of the universe that these stories are taking part in, then why can't, and you can have the two Joker films be separate and all this stuff, then why can't you do another Henry Cavill film? I think the guy has gone through so I was going to say ups and downs, mainly downs, being that character, with what he had to go through after the Man of Steel, and all the ridicule that he got for Justice League and stuff like that with the mustache CGI stuff and all that crap. I think he'd earned a second movie. And it's ironic, really, because I wasn't the biggest fan of Man of Steel, but I liked the direction and I liked the way it was going, and I could see the potential of the second movie of him being fully Superman and that sort of direction. But we never really got that. We just got obviously Dawn of Justice when it's Batman versus Superman.
Yeah.
Which is a whole other probably its own podcast in its own right talking about that film. But I'm not necessarily bothered about him not being Superman for the main part of it, but I do think he should have had another film. In terms of my only concern with this is I think James Gunn can obviously make a good film. He's shown in the superhero genre he can make them. But my problem is when it's such a big character, it's different with the Suicide Squad and it's different with Guardians, because these were two groups that no one really knew about, and there weren't, unless you were a comic fan, like obviously, like I know we're comic fans, so we knew of them, but like in the mainstream, no one knew who Guardians of the Galaxy were, and everyone was saying before that first one came out, this is like a huge gamble by Marvel to spread it out into space and to do all this with this ragtag group of people that aren't necessarily heroes in the sense of they're the good guys. They're like sort of not anti-heroes, but somewhere in between. So I feel like the Guardians of the Galaxy and the Suicide Squad that he did were both sort of free swings where he could just do what he wanted to do. And I think with Superman, there's certain things you have to touch upon and have to keep. You can't just tear the rule book out on them. And if he does that, I think it risks ruining it from the start. And it's weird. It's weird that I'm putting Iron Man on the same level, but if this is going to start and even get going, Superman has to be brilliant. It can't be, it's an okay film, because if it's an okay film, people aren't going to go, well, I'm going to go see the rest of it.
Yeah.
So that's my main worry is that, and the thing is he's in charge of all of the projects as well. It's not just him doing one film. So my concern is that he's going to spread himself too thin, and it's going to be, because Kevin Feige, or your best mate Kev, is good old Kev. He's obviously not directing or writing anything. He has the general story direction, and these are the things that need to get touched on, and then the rest of the movies are up to you. Do what you need to do. That's fine. Yeah. But I think with James Gunn being so heavily involved, that's my main concern is, can this guy do this across multiple projects? And I'm excited by some of the projects and interested to see where it comes. But some of the projects I'm a comic fan. I haven't heard some of these projects that are coming. And I'm like, I hope this isn't too far and too weird, because that's one thing I would levy at the MCU right now, is that there's too many random things going on. Like there's too many like characters that we haven't heard of or haven't had enough of an introduction of, that we're expected to be like, right, we've got to follow them now as if they're the next sort of like Cap, Iron Man, and Thor. And I just don't know if that's going to work. But again, in Kevin we trust, because he's done it for 10-15 years. So why won't we trust him now? But I think it's got, I mean, I will see it. I will go see it because it's Superman, and my love of Superman comes from when I was a kid with the animated series, rather than it being like comics or anything like that. And I've always gone to see Superman films, so it won't be any different this time. I'll be very interested to see who they cast, because again, we've not, at the time of recording, which is the 20th of April, nothing has been said in terms of casting. Like you said before we went on record, I would imagine there's someone in place now, because they're in pre-production. So that means costumes, agents, all that stuff have had to be sorted out, stages, all that stuff. I mean, the entire cast is probably pretty much set, I would imagine, apart from maybe one or two small roles, I would imagine. But I mean, knowing my luck, now that we've said that it hasn't been announced, it's probably getting announced tonight before the podcast goes out. And then we've got to sort of add a bit on the end and say, well, this person's been cast. What do we think? but again, like I'll reserve judgment until I see the actual film before I make judgment on whoever plays them, because ever since Heath Ledger got hired as the Joker, I've never. I remember seeing the backlash to that and thinking, why is everyone jumping? I mean, I was just a kid then. I didn't know what people were talking about, but I always thought, why just give the guy a chance and see what happens? And he was the best thing since sliced bread. So,
well, there's a similar thing actually happening at the moment. If you've seen all the rumors going around, Adam Driver has been offered the role of Reed Richards. In the Fantastic Four. That's all the news that's been going out in like the last 24 hours, again, as the time of recording, is the fact that Adam Driver has apparently been offered this role. A lot of people on Twitter, not happy, not very happy, and are very much going, well, surely he suits perfectly the role of Doctor Doom. You know, he was like the perfect guy for Kylo Ren in Star Wars, did a brilliant job of Kylo Ren, you know, so the natural first thing is like Doctor Doom, you know, the villain, you know, is what everyone's sort of saying. I'm like, it's a similar, not probably as bad as what the Heath Ledger backlash was, but like with this one, it very much feels like we're going through that process of people going, you know, he's not going to suit it, he's not going to suit it, and then he's probably going to smash it out of the park because Adam Driver's a brilliant actor, you know. I remember when the whole Joker thing came out, Joaquin Phoenix, right? Everyone was like, he's a bit old, come on, blah, blah. One of the best comic book movies I've seen. It's brilliant. It's genius. It's so well made. And and he's brilliant in that. So it's just like, and it's like, the very quick to criticize, but then most of the people that are put in these roles are brilliant. Imagine, like, I'm going to name another one just to really reinforce the point of don't criticize the actor before you actually see the film. Ryan Reynolds already played Deadpool once and was rubbish. And now look at Ryan Reynolds. Like, it's just like, again.
Ryan Reynolds, I don't actually know if he was rubbish. It was rubbish how they went with the direction of the second half of it. But yeah, I get what you mean.
It's like you had the Green Lantern a few years before that. You know, there was every reason under the sun to go, why are you going with Ryan Reynolds? Why? Like, that's what everyone thought. Now look at Deadpool, one of the most marketable like parts of Marvel, and it's rated R. It shouldn't be making money, and it makes money every goddamn time because it's brilliant. Like, there are so many examples, and I've just touched the surface of announcements. So when the Superman announcement comes, and everyone inevitably goes, reserve judgment, similar to what Grimmy just said, until we see the film, because there's a reason these guys are actors, right? And there is literally, like, their entire job is to play different characters. So they could be brilliant at playing a villain, but also brilliant at playing a hero, you know, because actors are like that. They can switch on a dime, you know, like that's the entire point, you know. I was having a conversation with my mate the other day about the Star Trek films. Benedict Cumberbatch, brilliant villain in the Star Trek films, but also brilliant hero in Doctor Strange. Right, so like the whole point is that they can play all these different characters. That's the joys of actors, right?
Yep.
So whoever this is, and I have a feeling, and we kind of discussed briefly beforehand that, like, I have a feeling they might go a bit left field. I don't think they're going to go with a mainstream name. I know similar to like the Adam Driver possibly being Reed Richards thing. You know, that's a big actor getting into a big role, and they're doing that. Whereas I think what they're going to do is probably go with someone a little bit left field and kind of see what happens and almost get them to make that role their own. Because when Marvel back in the day, you know, got Robert Downey and all of that, quite frankly, like Kevin, my best mate, and everyone else, like, didn't have a clue where it was going to go, really. They had, obviously, the arc and, like, the Infinity Saga arc, they, you know, was already kind of laid out. But in a way, it also wasn't. Because if you watch the first few Marvel films until Avengers, If it ended at Avengers, it would have felt right. Like there wasn't, apart from the post-credit scene, there wasn't really much to sort of go, oh, this is going to carry on. You know, and they were all very much their standalone things. That's because they didn't know where it was going to go, and they weren't sure whether it'd take off. DC have got to be clever. They've got to do the same thing, almost 1 or 2 films a year, so things don't get spread. With James Gunn, doesn't get spread across like everything. You need to do 1 or 2 films a year, and people will be thinking, "Oh, that's not a lot of DC stuff." But as we've touched upon, the Batman's still going on, the Joker's still going on. They've got all these independent projects that are still going to be happening. So it's just separate to the DC universe, and there's probably going to be standalone films that do continue. For me, it's actually quite smart to sort of just take it slow. For the love of God, take it slow, because they've got to be clever with each film and with how they do each film. It's one of those, and I'm really similar to you. I'm really not sure who they're going to go for.
Yeah, I really don't. I've tried to like think of people, and I'm struggling to think of. It could be one of those things where it's like, oh, maybe I didn't think of them, or, but it could be totally left field. I do think. It is going to be a bit left field myself. I mean, I think it almost helps in a way, because then if it is some little unknown person, not little unknown person, but if it's someone that hasn't reached that level yet, and they found the next person, then I think that makes it a bit more exciting. You're thinking, right, we're going to see this performance and not have that judgment going into it. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how it turns out, because again, it's the first one. It's the start again. And again, I know there's projects coming out, obviously, between now and then. Obviously, you've got the Flash film coming out in June, which I know I'm very excited by, because that's literally out on my birthday. So, best birthday ever, in my opinion. Getting to see Michael Keaton as Batman again on my birthday, it's just... Wow.
Love it.
And then you've got Blue Beetle, like you mentioned, in August. And then you've got Aquaman in his second film, which has been delayed a couple of times, I think, as well. So it'd be interesting to see how that one pans out. So if you include Shazam, that's 4 DC films this year.
Yeah.
Which is crazy, really. And if you think Flash could be a reset for everything, I'd be like, certain characters aren't here anymore, or certain characters come in, or maybe there's something in a post-credit scene where it's like James Gunn puts something in where it's like, right, this is where everything starts now, and we go from here, sort of thing. Then I do think it's going to be interesting to see where that sort of shaping goes. But before we go sort of into any more territory of do we think they can pull it off or anything, I just want to run through some of the other projects that we've got coming in terms of the James Gunn specific stuff that he announced. The first one being The Authority. I've got a description here from Polygon's article about it. This is a superhero ensemble that dates to a 99 comic book series published under DC's Wildstorm print. The Authority is basically 7 heroes with very high concept superpowers, aka one of them is called Jack Hawksmoor, who is physically bonded to City, drawing his power from them.
What?
So it sounds a little bit like Watchmen or / League of, is it Extraordinary Gentlemen or something like that?
Something.
Yeah, from like, it's like the old Sean. I remember it's the Sean. I know it's a really famous comic book, but there was a film with Sean Connery in it, like in the early 2000s, that didn't do very well. Not that I'm saying The Authority is going to be that, but it's just that description gives me that sort of vibe to it.
Yeah.
So it'll be very interesting to see how that
It's
plays
also
out.
what James Gunn is best at is getting a group of people together. You know, that we named the 2 big projects in comic books that he's known for is the Suicide Squad and Guardians. He's very, very good at getting a group together and really fleshing out each of the characters while not taking away from the film itself. So for me, I'm looking at that. On the surface, obviously, it's not the most exciting, oh my God, that character. Yeah. But it's, I'm looking at it going, okay, I know James Gunn is very good at that. I know James Gunn is very good at these types of films. So I think it's not a bad start, really.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's definitely something that's got interest to me. I mean, again, like we've said about various parts of the Superman film, I'm interested to see how it plays out and who's involved in it. Because again, I don't think James Gunn's going to be like directing and writing all these. So if it's one of those that he's involved in, I'll certainly give it a chance because of what he's done with the previous 2 series he's been involved in, like you're saying. But again, we'll have to see who's involved and who's playing what and doing what, I suppose. The next one, which then is probably my most important one to me, because I'm a huge Batman fan, if you haven't already guessed this from the various Batman conversations we've probably had across the pods. But Batman the Brave and the Bold is the next big one. Basically, there is a description here, but from my understanding of it, it's going to be Batman and Robin, and it's going to be Bruce Wayne and Damian Wayne, as in his actual biological son, playing him, or character that's going to be with him. And it's going to be heavily inspired by the Grant Morrison comic series. Now, if you haven't read them, I would heavily recommend you do, because I think those particular ones are fantastic. It's not Bruce Wayne who's the Batman in them ones, though, so there will be something a little bit different in that aspect for when the film comes out. But the comic book series and overall really is a really entertaining story. And I think if that's where he's going with Batman, I think that's a pretty big pointer as to how James Gunn's going to go for the rest of the universe, because it's not your typical Batman's really serious and Dark Knight and da-da-da-da. It's like there's a bat cow in it at one point.
Right.
Like Damian adopts a cow and calls it Bat Cow.
Right.
So there are moments of levity that aren't normally in Batman comics. So there is this like bit of weirdness, which totally get that James Gunn would be attracted to that sort of story, because those little things. And then I think the main villain in like the first set of comics is what's his name? It's not Dr. Pig.
Professor Pig.
Professor Pig, that's it. Yeah. So like he's the main villain in one of the arcs in it, and it's like those sort of little weird characters that you wouldn't see in the big productions are probably going to be a prime spot for James Gunn to pick.
Yeah.
So I do think it will be interesting. But again, it's another thing with the casting of they've got to get Batman right.
Well, this is going to be something I was actually going to ask you, because, like, funnily enough, right, I'm a big, funnily enough, nerd, right? And this hasn't popped up on my Twitter whatsoever. Like, and I follow a lot of accounts, and I never saw this pop up. And I do just want to put the question out there. This is definitely not animated, right?
As far as I'm aware, yeah.
Because, like, that's another thing it wouldn't surprise me that James Gunn tries to do, is similar to what Into the Spider-Verse did, make one or two of his stories animated to try and break into that industry, similar to what Marvel are doing. So I did want to sort of double check that. If it's not, as you said, that the casting has to be perfect, especially given the fact that alongside all of this, Robert Pattinson's going to be playing Batman, and Robert Pattinson is brilliant as Batman. So it's going to be interesting. And do you know what? Given obviously, I know we're only 2 in, but given the description so far, it seems like what James Gunn is doing is going, right, I'm going to make not happy DC movies, because that's probably, but lighter toned DC movies, because I like similar to probably what he did with the Suicide Squad and stuff like that, those lighter sort of tones. So it wouldn't surprise me if you see that a lot more. And then you have the grittier stories as these solo ones that are going alongside it, because the Batman has its own gritty storyline going on. Joker, gritty story. So it seems like all the independent projects are sort of being these grittier storylines, while he gets to do all the lighter hearted sort of takes on the
bit of a stranger tone to it than it would be you would expect it from a superhero film. Yeah, like The Brave and the Bold, when I saw that it was going to be based on that Grant Morrison run, I really did feel like that mixed in with what he was talking about Superman. It really gave off that vibe of it's going to be a bit different to what we would expect normally from these characters.
Yeah.
Not that I'm saying he's going totally left field with it, but there is going to be some levity and fun with the characters rather than just being dark and serious like it has been with the Zack Snyder films. But I just want to quickly touch upon what you're saying about the animated stuff, because he did, during his announcement, he did say that there will be animated films and like video games and stuff like that that are linked into the world, and he wants the same actors that play them in the films to play them across the different projects. Whether that's doable, I don't know, because it's one thing to get, like, say, just as a random example, say Bradley Cooper played Batman. Not saying he is, but say if he did. Say Bradley Cooper played Batman. Then he's going to play him in a 10-minute role in an animated movie, and then he's going to play him potentially for a couple of hours in a video game. That's like, contractually, that must be an absolute mind melt to have to figure out, because it's one thing to go to Robert Downey Jr. You're going to appear 10 times. Here's your contract, $50 million for Avengers, and then $2 million for your little appearances or whatever. But to then go, you've got video games, animated films, TV, because there's TV series in this list as well, which people don't really talk about. But I just think it's I have hope for it because of the fact that it's James Gunn. But it's the more I listen to myself talk about it, the more convoluted it seems to get.
Yeah.
And that's my main worry, is that, like, it's, if he somehow pulls it off and everyone's involved in everything, great. But DC and Warner Brothers have to let him do that if he's going to do it, because once you'd stop them from doing one, it stops everything.
Yeah.
Because I remember when they were doing the Arrowverse in the TV series, there was always the cry for, like, some of the bigger characters to appear, like the likes of Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman and people like that. And there was always, like, loose little nuggets which got left, like Arrow visited Bloodhaven in between an episode or whatever, and it was like, ooh, that's like a little nod. Is it coming? But it never really did until the very end, when there was sort of a huge crossover. And it was like, if James Gunn's being allowed off the leash and letting them get involved in all the properties, then it really could be something special and exciting to see, where you've got Batman appearing in like a 10-minute part of an episode of a TV series, because like one of them is the Green Lantern series that's going to happen is going to be a TV series. So you could have crossovers like that. But again, are they going to let them do it too much, or are they going to let it be this entire universe that flows through each other? Because if you don't, I think it's going to stop and start it, really. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see on that one. Did you have any thoughts on that in terms of what I've just said there? The animation and the voice acting and stuff?
It really excites me, especially like in the modern day, similar to us sort of sat here now. We've got really good mics. You know, there are people from home who can get really good mics now. You know, the same will be for these actors. You know, they can get these great mics that they can use and do voice recordings from home or on locations. But as you said, I think it's more of, I think, a contractual issue than a issue in terms of like time, because like these actors, if you do go, oh, we'll pay for, you don't have to pay for a mic, but you get what I mean. Like, you know, we'll make sure you've got the facility to do it from home. I think a lot of people would be fine with that. You know, obviously then you've got the questions of how do you get the chemistry if you're doing an animated thing. You know, some people get that chemistry from being in the studio alongside their counterparts and like bouncing off of them. You won't obviously be able to get that, but that's a wider worry. The big worry is just if they can get that contractually done, it's exciting as a fan, because I don't necessarily watch the TV series a lot, especially with Marvel. I'm not a TV show person. If I've got to spare a couple of hours, I'm going to watch a film. I'm not going to watch 2 episodes of a TV show, which is why linking all the way back to the Last of Us podcast that we did, that's why that one was so highly thought of by me, was because I don't usually get gripped like that and get that urge to watch a TV show. So it's more exciting of a game part for me, because that will help with immersion massively. If I'm seeing something play out in a game and I'm hearing the voices that are then, when I turn the game off and I'm watching a film, I'm hearing the same voices. It's really going to make this entire like universe thing. And it also, I think, from, again, an immersion point of view, hearing those voices and you holding the controller is going, I'm in control. This is like, I'm part of the universe. And that's a really clever thing. If he can manage to do it, like, we're on to something special.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like if he like I precipice this with everything, with all the grains of salt I put all over this. If he pulls this off and it's as good as it can be, it could rival. I mean, it's difficult to say it's going to rival the MCU in terms of that sort of Iron Man to Endgame block, but
I think it will.
It could though. There is every chance it could, but it's got to jump a lot of hoops and hurdles to get there. With that being said, the next project they announced in the sort of film scope was Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. Again, we haven't had a proper Supergirl film before.
No.
Will be interesting to see if that links in with the character that's going to be in the Flash.
I was intrigued at that.
This is the whole question of which I think some characters will be in and some characters won't be. I don't think it's going to be a, like you were suggesting, where it's going to be everyone's going to be out. I think there's going to be some characters that get kept in. But I think something happens in the Flash where some people get deleted, I guess is the term. Or like get kept on and are stuck around and sort of universes collide sort of thing, and some people are gone and some people are there.
I think that's the way they've got to do it. If they keep anybody, what they have to do is have in the Flash 2 universes collide and merge into one, but obviously you can't have 2 of the same person. So what would be really cool, and if you've got a pair of gonads on you, what you would do is when you do that in the Flash, if whatever, and you know, I think they are going to recast the Flash. That's quite in my head. So
I would be amazed if they didn't.
Yeah. But for me, in my head, the way I would do the ending of the Flash, and if you're going to be clever about it, is you have Ezra Miller's Flash be deleted, the new Flash get revealed, whoever that may be. I've got a sneaking suspicion they might go with the TV show Flash. I don't know why. I've just got the sneaky suspicion they might give it that person, just so it's a familiar face straight away. With these things merging, so you've got like them in place. So let's say it's them. They then go, I'm going to find Batman, right? Or I'm going to find Superman or whatever, because they've got the contacts to that person. Like, but probably Batman in my head. You go all the way into Wayne Manor, you go up the top, bang, there's your new Batman. And that sets the tone of, okay, people have changed. And that's like the reset of this whole thing is like, you have someone who's iconic. And the reason why I say Batman is because there's 2 Batman in that film. So you've got Batfleck. What I would do is have him at controversially, I'd have Keaton die, and then I would.
Don't you dare, sir! Don't you dare!
I would have Keaton die, have Batfleck, finish it with the Flash. This whole thing, and then you merge the worlds, and the worlds are fine. Then have the entire world reset, and you've got the Flash going to find Batman, and it's not Ben Affleck. And that like be like the poignant moment of like the reveal that it's just not. And it's like, and it like, even just talking about that moment, I got like mini goosebumps of like how cool that would be in the cinema to have that reveal. For me, that's how they would do it. If you're not resetting everything, if you are resetting everything, don't bother with that moment. You don't need that. You can just literally go, whole new universe, surprise, as sort of like your ending. But if you are merging them, what you need is this poignant moment where you have someone who's established as a character staying and someone who is established as a character going at the same moment. So then you've got this whole, oh, okay, this is new. And you've got that. So as you said, it's going to be interesting. I obviously can't say whether I would want this person to stay as Supergirl or not until I see their performance as Supergirl.
Yeah, of course.
But from everything I've seen in the trailers, she looks good. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was again to just have that familiar face sort of in there.
Yeah, certainly. No, to be fair, I've imagined it pretty similar to what you have in terms of the end of the film of there being some sort of big reveal that it's someone else. And the way I always imagined it was because he was setting up the table of the Justice League in Wayne Manor. I always imagined like the seat was like pointed backwards, and it had the bat symbol on it. And then as he turned, and it's like, "Oh, Bruce, I'm back." And then he turns around, and then it's someone completely different. And you can go, like,
Who are
"Were you?" sort of thing, or like, "Oh, hi."
Yeah.
And he's like, "I'm Batman," sort of thing. Like, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I could see that totally happening. Again, like I was mentioned before, I think James Gunn doing a little post-credit scene explaining that a little bit better, or you know, you see the new Superman or something like that. Something like that, I think could totally work. But yeah, it's very interesting. I don't know. The thing is, because of how far back the Flash was made, because it was filmed about 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know how much it can have in there, but it would seem to suggest that because Affleck said it's his last one, obviously it's Keaton is the other Batman. Maybe something like that could happen. But we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
But yeah, Supergirl Woman Tomorrow is on the slate. The one that's probably going to interest you more than it would do me is Swamp Thing.
Okay, yeah.
That's going to be more of a. I think they've said it's going to be darker, like a darker tone and a more horror slant on it. And
If you're doing Swamp Thing, you have to go that route. Purely because from everything, I don't know much about Swamp Thing, but from everything that I know and everything that I do love about the character that I've seen is this darker sort of tone, this like gritty, like can murder people at any moment sort of ordeal. Almost not being this like PG, oh, I'm going to save the world. It's this whole, I'm going to kill people. I can and I will. Similar to Deadpool, but less happy. More angry.
So I mean, Swamp Thing, a name like Swamp Thing would suggest that as well. To be fair,
yeah.
So that does make sense. I mean, the only description you've got for that is that we'll investigate the dark origins of Swamp Thing. So what that means, I don't know. But those are sort of the main films in terms of the James Gunn universe. Obviously, you've got the likes of Joker 2, Folie à Deux. You've got the Pattinson Batman films, and there's a couple of other ones as well. Not triggering off in my head, but I can't remember them off the top of my head. But it wouldn't
surprise me if but just before, because I can already tell that that's going to be a talking point, what you're about to say. It wouldn't surprise me if we see an announcement of another Suicide Squad ordeal soon. Because of how successful those films are, I think they're probably stupid not to do another one.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of TV shows which are based on around Amanda Waller.
Give me more Viola Davis.
Well, it's her that's playing it, which is what I mean when I'm saying before, like, I think there will be some crossover. Not loads, but I think there'll be enough where it's like, right, okay, that's her from there, that's him from there. Like, we can connect the dots a little bit. But my main question, and I'm sure there will be some projects with her in it at some point, but my main question is, you've got Superman, you've got Batman. Where's Wonder Woman in all this?
Yeah.
Like, whether there's some sort of discussion with Gal Gadot or there's some sort of discussion with someone else, obviously time will tell. Obviously, the last reports that I heard in terms of Affleck, Cavill, and Gadot was that they were actually considering taking Warner Brothers to court because of how the films went and the lack of earnings and lack of films that they did in their contract.
Yeah.
Which is a whole other thing. So whether that's part of it, I don't know. But I'm amazed that Wonder Woman hasn't had something, even just like a loosely TV series linked project.
Yeah. I wonder whether they're saving it in a way, more because similar to like the whole Justice League sort of thing, when it was like, Wonder Woman's sort of come to save the day, sort of like, is this? Wouldn't surprise me if they go down like the Captain Marvel route, similar to what sort of Marvel have done, and keep it quite a big character quiet for this big moment of leveling the playing field when it's needed. And that's your sort of big like moment. And if they are planning that moment, that could explain why they haven't announced the project, because if they're thinking of a moment like that, it would make sense to keep the actor, right? And that would make sense. You know, because that poignant moment of, oh, it's Wonder Woman doesn't work quite as well. Obviously, you've got the costume, but it would probably be more impactful if it is the Wonder Woman that we all know. So that could maybe explain it if they're planning a moment like that, maybe thinking, well, we want to keep you. But then you've obviously, we just don't know whether she wants to stay or not, which I think is a big issue as well. You know, and we say whether she wants to stay or not. James Gunn might, as we mentioned before, just reset every character. You know, mentioning of Amanda Waller there, it gets me sort of excited. I wouldn't mind if they go down the route of like only keeping a couple of the characters, because like Amanda Waller is like really clever. The whole point is that she's a genius, right? She's an evil genius. Now, what is more like, what makes an evil genius worse than anything else in the world is knowing more than everyone else in the world. So if you retain the memories of the previous universe going into the new universe and knowing everything, so like as we said, we could have this whole Batman thing, keeping the identity secret, and you have that moment again with Amanda Waller going, "Hi, Bruce," and it, like just that power of knowing who people are and all of this will make Amanda Waller seem a bigger villain than she already is. And I think that if you get like for characters like that, keeping them the same actor will really work. But yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting that we haven't that James Gunn clearly has gone for quite a lot of the originals. You know, even Green Lantern's sort of in there. So the fact that, you know, a lot of the original sort of ones that people are familiar with are there, but then you're not seeing the likes of Wonder Woman. It is quite interesting.
I mean, in terms of the two projects involving Waller, there's two of them. One's called Creature Commandos, which is Gunn writing the series again. It's a TV series at 7 episodes. And it's basically Amanda Waller forms another super team out of monstrous prisoners. So basically, it's another Suicide Squad, but it's a different team altogether. And then Waller, it's literally called Waller. That's literally solely dedicated to Waller's character being the lead role, and it'll feature Team Peacemaker. So if you're a fan of that series, you'll be happy to have them back as well.
See, it's going to be interesting because what I envision James Gunn doing, which personally, as much as it's going to make him bank, I wouldn't do it this way. But I think the way he's going to do it is scrap every character that didn't work, keep the ones that did. So basically, scrap everyone that isn't in the Suicide Squad and keep everyone that is exactly what I am envisioning to happen in this merger of like the two universes that we're kind of envisioning happening, because that's kind of the only explainer for why half have stayed and the other half haven't. You know, and yeah, I think that's the way they're going to do it, which is smart from a money perspective. I would have probably. I mean, I'm going to eat my words and he's going to smash out the park, but I probably would have kept them separate and had just the Suicide Squad sort of universe thing just happen on its own as its own separate thing, similar to the Batman, similar to Joker. And have that as like a separate project and its own little baby that can stay over there and away from the DC universe. But
I don't know. I think I'd like them together, to be fair. I think I
don't mind it.
I mean, I think personally, if you've got something that works, and if it means keeping Harley Quinn and and maybe a couple of the other characters as well, I mean, Waller's staying and, you know, sticking around and looks like going to be a big component of the TV series, the couple that she's going to be involved in. So yeah, I think those two, if there's two series I think are probably going to hit the spot out of the TV series I'm seeing, it's probably those two. Because
Viola Davis is incredible. If anyone hasn't seen How to Get Away with Murder, watch it now. It's one of the best TV shows I've seen. And Viola Davis's performance in that, if you don't want to watch the TV series and just want to watch compilations of her performance in it, just watch it now, because that is like, her performance is another level that I haven't seen from a lot of other people. Like, it is just another level. You know, and you know, if it would be quite a statement as well. James Gunn doing all this thing, getting all the bad PR initially because of the Henry Cavill stuff, because of the backlash from Dwayne Johnson. Very little backlash, in fairness, from, I can't remember his name. You'll probably be able to recall it. The guy who plays Shazam.
Zachary Levine.
Yeah, he seems just quite thankful to have been there. It's actually quite like heartwarming seeing all the stuff that he's sort of posted afterwards of the movie.
Yeah, it's a bit
thanking everyone and all of that.
I find it a bit weird, to be honest. But
you know, I mean, and again, he might stay, but I have a feeling he won't. I have a feeling that could be all done. And you know, but imagine, right? The James Gunn goes into this after all the bad PR that sort of happened, and goes, "I've kept Viola Davis, I've kept Margot Robbie, I've kept Idris Elba, I've kept John Cena." Like, imagine sort of those. Like, that's quite a statement. Like, like, if you do anything with King's Shark, like, I've kept Sylvester Stallone. Like, you do. Just imagine that sort of statement that you're sort of saying is like, yeah, given all this bad PR, but I've kept all the people you cared about. Like, let's be honest, all the people that made some great stuff, I've kept them. And I mean, that would be quite a poignant statement for like him to sort of make, and could create some brilliant cameos as movies go on, as you sort of realize that a lot of pretty much all of those characters are still there. And the person who plays Ratcatcher as well, can't remember her name, but brilliant.
She was brilliant in that film, but I can't remember her name.
I can't remember her name now, but it wouldn't, like, imagine all those just popping up in these random films that we sort of mentioned in TV series. I
mean, I think it's certainly possible. I think it's definitely possible from the descriptions I'm seeing, and obviously when things are set, it will be a big part of it. But I think some of the descriptions I'm seeing, I think there'll be a lot of crossover going on. I'll just quickly run through the last sort of few projects on the TV series side of thing. Booster Gold is another big one that a lot of people pointed out could be a lot of fun. The description of that is, again, he's a long-time comic relief character in the comics. Time traveler who uses basic technology and consumer appliances from the future to make himself a superhero in the present day. That description on its own makes me think that could be phenomenal and could be like really funny. Apparently, someone asked Chris Pratt the other day, would he be interested in playing it? And he's like, well, if James wants me to play him, I'll play him. So that could be
going to annoy so many people if that's
so many people. It will, but
I mean, love Chris Pratt, so I don't care.
It is what it is. We'll see what happens with that, and I'm sure we'll get some announcements in due course. Second last one, Lanterns. Green Lantern Corps, basically been Galaxy's foremost law enforcement agency since 1959, and basically it's going to be a buddy cop series with Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart. And then it'll be basically an enormous TV event series focused on the two unraveling a dark mystery. To be honest, the Green Lantern is the one that I hope they smash out the park, because in the comics some of the stories he has in the comics would be so good to see on whether it's the ones where he when Hal Jordan goes bad, or if it's like taking on Sinestro. I'm trying to get the pronunciation right before I butcher it too much. And other things like that, and like the whole battles they have with all the different Lantern Corps and all this stuff, like it could be so good if they get it right. So yeah, that's Lanterns. And I was wrong about the Wonder Woman stuff, because there is a series loosely linked to it. It's called Paradise Lost. It's set on the planet where Wonder Woman and all the characters come from.
Delete all your comments now. Delete all the comments now.
It's not clear if she's going to be in it, because they've not said yes or no. But basically, it's going to be a drama focusing on the genesis and political intrigue of an island of just women.
Screams cameo. Screams cameo.
But apparently, they're making it sound like it's a bit Game of Thronesy, which could be interesting.
Hello. superhero version of Game of Thrones. Now that I'm not the biggest Game of Thrones fan, but I know I've seen a lot of stuff from Game of Thrones. If you get some sort of rated R TV show in terms of superhero stuff, give it me now. Give it.
Yeah. So basically, with that being said, the final bit of description is Gunn and Safran, who's the other guy, are co-headers of all the projects, and that includes all movie, television, and video game products for the company going forward. So that would suggest that unless something's already been in development for years and it's like on the verge of coming out in the next year or two, anything that gets announced from now or from whenever this announcement first came out, basically it's going to be tied into this. So I was really hoping we'd get an Injustice 3. I don't know if you've ever played the Injustice games.
I played the first one. I didn't have the money at the time for the second one.
The second one, second one's like on sale for like £5 or £10 now. Like if you just for the story alone, just play it because it's really good. And to be fair, the graphics are quite mind-boggling at times. But yeah, I always wanted an Injustice 3 game. I don't know if that'll happen now if it's not already being made. But I really hope
I'm similar with Arkham games. I've been calling out for another.
Well, the Arkham, there's a leak. There's been a leak recently of another Arkham game coming.
Don't tease me.
So
don't do that to me.
We'll talk about that off the podcast. But I suppose the final question is, after obviously discussing all these topics and all these products and projects that are going on in DC, do we think that this can work and that Gunn and Safran can pull this off? Do we think DC can revitalize itself and actually get this to work?
Right.
Or is it too much to ask?
I slightly answered this question before we went live, and I adamantly said no. And I was very adamant about my no. My no is no longer as adamant. When you discuss things like this, because especially with announcements like this, actually discussing it with someone else about it, because I don't really, when I see announcements, I might tweet about it and that's about it. Or I might react to it on a stream or something. But, not very often do I speak about it to somebody like this. And I think it sounds a lot better it sounds very planned out, right? And I think that's why I'm not as concerned, because it sounds like, to me, that on the surface, it looks like DC have just gone, James Gunn's available, bang, let's get him, right? That's how it looked on the surface. But from everything that James Gunn is sort of saying past this point, it very much seems like this has maybe been in the works for a little bit longer than we thought. Maybe even if it was just a theoretical, would you do it? They thought he wouldn't, so that's why they started doing the whole thing with The Rock and Dwayne Johnson, coming in. And then all of a sudden it's actually no, James Gunn said yes. James Gunn suddenly come back to us and said yes. And that possibly not because it not long happened after Black Adam. So maybe James Gunn saw that, maybe thought, actually, I can do a lot with this, said yes, and had done all these plans, because it sounds like he's had these plans for a while. So it doesn't sound as rushed as it initially did on the surface to me.
Yeah.
And that puts me in a lot of hope that things can go well. However, I've said this before. This is now, as I've mentioned off camera, we've had, 3 reruns of Batman. The moment this comes, the whole James Gunn thing comes out, we would have had... No, we've already had 3 reruns of Batman. This will now be the 4th in a matter of, 15 years? We've had that. We've had the Superman on and off again sort of mentality that's kind of been going on. We've had the whole Justice League being built up to and then pushed forwards and then rushed and then rubbish. We've had the standouts of DC be characters that it shouldn't be, right? Quite frankly, we had a standalone Joker film do brilliantly and get nominated for Oscars and this, that, and the other, right? Which is not really known for in comic book movies, right? Because they're usually very hated by critics. That came out of nowhere. It really shouldn't have done well, and it did. The Suicide Squad. First, the original Suicide Squad bombed. The second one shouldn't have done well, but it really did. Yeah. Because they capitalized on Harley Quinn. on the performance of Margot Robbie. They capitalize on that. If what they are doing, you know, and it always does start with The Flash, and The Flash will be a great movie, given all the controversy. That's a whole nother ordeal. But it looks on the surface like a really, really good movie. If they do it right and the reset correctly, and they have to be tread very carefully with how they do it, if they do it correctly, it could be brilliant.
Yeah.
But it requires care. And I'm not talking about the first couple of years being careful. I'm talking about the first 5 to 10 years being careful. You know, the Avengers movies, you know, the whole phase 1 is spread over quite a while, you know, and I think DC need to do that for the start of this. They need to build to something, have an end goal, and go, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to see the reception of this period of time, similar to what Marvel did with phase 1. And then we will build off of that. We'll see what people want, what people liked, what people didn't like, and we'll move from there. For me, that's what they need to do. It's a tentative. Do I think they can do it? Yeah. But do I think they will? I'm not too sure.
Way to sit on the fence. I'm interested in most of the projects that they've announced, which is a good start, because when I first heard when you started doing the announcements, there's a couple of them I was a bit like, not sure about that. But then when I've heard as the projects list has gone on, I've gone, ooh, yes. Mainly, surprisingly, the TV series seemed to be interesting me the most out of all of them.
Yeah.
But again, things could change. Could see the trailers and be like, oh, I'm not sure about that. Sure about that.
And vice versa for the films. You could be not excited for the film, and then all of a sudden the trailer looks unbelievable, and you're like, yes, get me there.
Yeah, like it could be totally different. I do have reservations because of the fact that it's so much coming that they've announced, and it's not just we're doing 2 films, we're going to see how it goes, and then we'll greenlight the other stuff. A la what Marvel did. Right, Iron Man worked, we'll do a Captain America and we'll do a 4. Those worked, great. Then we'll do Iron Man 2 and we've got this and we've got that. Like, they're not building it up. They're doing what DC did last time. Well, they're not doing quite what DC did last time. DC tried to create a universe of 1 film.
Yep.
DC are almost saying there's a universe here and we're making it. So it's a little bit of a progressive step from that. I don't think it's going to be another MCU scenario where everything's going to hit and it's going to be phenomenal. I don't think anything can be, really. Again, on the scale of the project that DC is looking at right now, I think we'll probably see it land as when everything's said and done and everything's finished and everything's written and everything's been released. I think it'll be about a 7 or 8 out of 10 that we'll look back on the, and that's not bad. That's good for DC.
Yeah.
7 out of 10 is perfectly fine and reasonable because of the amount of projects and the amount of variety that some are going to hit and some aren't. I don't think it's quite as wildly varied as what the MCU is right now or what it was after Endgame when you had like WandaVision, then Loki, then the new Doctor Strange, then the new movies that have come out recently, like the new Ant-Man, which is supposed to be kicking off the new phase or whatever. But yeah, like I just don't see how this can be a perfect hit run, but I can see because of the projects and what they've chosen how it can get there. So yeah, I'm very interested to see what they announce though, because I think with stuff going into pre-production, like Superman going into pre-production, something's got to be coming soon.
Yeah,
whether it's a costume or whether it's the actor itself or whether it's like the person in the costume or something. You know,
it wouldn't
like,
surprise me, as we mentioned before, the Flash, if it gets announced there. You know, that movie, it seems set up for an announcement to happen.
And that's what they've got. I think that's what DC have to do in a way. They have to do announcements a little bit differently. They have to do some things like post-credit scenes. Post-credit scenes before the MCU were not a thing. No one ever knew what was coming next. If you had it, you might have a scene right at the end, like Batman Begins, where he turns over the card and it's the Joker card. It's like, right, that's where we're going next. But you didn't get more than that. You didn't get, here's the big baddie. Here's who's coming next. Here's what might happen next. Or here's a funny scene. You didn't get stuff like that. So I think the DCU needs to maybe come up with something like that or add something to that where it's announcing the next thing that people don't know about, whether it's the new actor or it's the new character coming or whatever. it's got to evolve that formula a little bit and make these surprises come a bit left field and not out of nowhere, really. And I think that stuff like that is probably the way to do it. But yeah, we'll see how it goes, I guess, because I would, like I say, I think announcements of who's playing who has got to come sooner rather than later, because we're what, 2 years out for Superman? Just 2 years and 2 months. I think we'll be hearing that sooner rather than later. And to be fair, when Batman went into pre-production, as in the Robert Pattinson one, when they went into pre-production, they did like a 10-15 second trailer of him in the suit, and it was literally like unfocused. Then it zoomed in, and then it looked up to him with it on, and then it cut. Yeah, that was it. You don't even have to do anything else more than that to get people excited.
No.
As soon as I saw it, I was like, let's fucking go!
Yeah.
I was ready to go. Like, I was just like, come on, like another Batman film. Like, we haven't seen many of those. But you know, that's a discussion for another day. So yeah, I think we'll leave it there. I think that's a pretty good spot to leave it at. A good hour of chat about the DC universe as we know it. Or what we know of it. Anyway.
Yeah, what we know to a point.
Yeah, what we know to a point. So yeah, we'll leave it there. If you have made it to the end of this podcast, thanks very much for sticking with us.
Put your thought below.
Put your thought in the comments. Who would you like to play Superman and Batman? Let us know in the comments.
Yeah.
Have you got someone, even if it's not Batman and Superman, just like a certain DC character you would love to be played by a certain actor or actress? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next week on the next Unbelievable Nerds podcast. See you soon, guys.